Bring me the medicine. A shrill sound pierced the dead silence of the Gu family's side courtyard. Lu Xiu's hair was elegantly styled into a peony bun. The golden hairpin on her head swayed violently with her hurried steps, and her normally dignified face was now filled with undisguised impatience and coldness. Followed by several burly maidservants, she stormed up to the dilapidated wooden gate and kicked it open with great force. I was sitting by the charcoal brazier, holding a chipped earthenware bowl filled with a medicinal decoction that had been simmering for a full 2 hours. This was the final dose of life-saving medicine prescribed by the city's most renowned physician to treat the plague. I had obtained it only after selling the one and only jade hairpin my mother had left me. Lying on the bed, 5-year-old Gu Miao was burning up with fever. Her palm-sized face was completely pale, and her breathing was so faint it was like a thread that could snap at any moment. She kept her eyes tightly shut, her chapped lips moving unconsciously as she murmured in a voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. Auntie, Miao hurts. Hearing Lu Xiu's voice, I spun around abruptly, clutching the bowl of medicine tightly to my chest, and snapped. Sister, what are you doing? This is Miao's life-saving medicine. Shut up. Lu Xiu strode forward, her icy gaze sweeping over her own daughter on the bed as if she were looking at a repulsive piece of trash. Gu Zhu is sick. The master said that Zhuer is a blessing sent from heaven. Her destiny is immeasurably noble and holds the key to the fortune of the entire Gu family. Now that she's caught a cold, she urgently needs this medicine to induce sweating. Hand over the medicine at once. I stared in disbelief at my biological older sister standing before me, feeling a chill run through my entire body. Even my fingertips were trembling. A cold? Gu Zhu just sneezed. But Miao has the plague. She's had a fever for 2 full days and nights. The doctor said that if she doesn't take this medicine, she won't make it through the night. My eyes welled up with tears, and I practically shouted, Lu Xiu, Miao is your own flesh and blood, the child you carried for 10 months. Are you really going to stand by and watch your own flesh and blood die just for the sake of an adopted daughter you picked up from who knows where? So what if she's my own flesh and blood? Lu Xiu let out a scornful, cold laugh, her eyes brimming with disgust. That good-for-nothing girl has been sickly ever since she was born. Not only did she bring about her grandmother's death, but she's also caused Tingling's career to hit a snag for the past half-year. On the other hand, ever since we adopted Zhuer, the Gu family's business has been thriving. Even the nobles in the palace have graced us with their presence. Zhuer is the apple of my eye. Giving her this medicine is putting it to good use. As for this jinx, Lu Xiu paused for a moment, her tone icy and piercing. If she's not meant to survive, it's because she lacks good fortune. She has no one but herself to blame. You're crazy. I laughed bitterly in my rage, clutching the bowl of medicine tightly and refusing to back down even a step. I bought this medicine with my own money, and no one's going to touch it today. You've gone too far. This is the Gu family's territory. It's not your place, as an unmarried outsider, to run wild here. Lu Xiu's expression darkened, and she waved her hand sharply. Aunt Lu, bring me the medicine. Several burly maidservants immediately pounced on me like wolves or tigers. I struggled desperately, but I was no match for these women, who were used to hard labor. Mother Lu shoved me hard on the shoulder. I lost my balance and fell heavily to the ground. With a sharp clang, the chipped earthenware bowl crashed onto the blue-glazed bricks and shattered into pieces. The black medicinal broth, which had simmered for 2 hours and held Miao's last glimmer of life, slowly seeped through the cracks in the bricks, giving off a strong, bitter odor. I stared blankly at the potion on the ground, and my head buzzed as if something had snapped completely. Oh my! What are we going to do? Mrs. Lu exclaimed, feigned alarm, but her gaze drifted toward Lu Xiu. Lu Xiuxian was taken aback for a moment, then furrowed her brows, but she showed not a shred of remorse. Instead, she pointed her finger at my nose and shouted, Lu Jin, you idiot! Look at what you've done. Now Zhuer's medicine is ruined because of you. If anything happens to Zhuer, I'll skin you alive. She didn't care at all that this medicine was Miao's last hope. All she cared about was that her lucky adopted daughter was missing a bowl of the decoction to induce sweating. Cough, cough, cough. On the bed, Miao, who had been unconscious, suddenly began coughing violently. A trickle of dark red blood snaked down the corner of her mouth, stinging my eyes. I scrambled over to the bedside, frantically wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth with my sleeve, and tears began to stream down my face uncontrollably. Meower, meower, don't scare your aunt. Doctor, go get a doctor. Quick! I whipped my head around and shouted at Lucio. We're out of medicine. Are you happy now? Meower is about to die, hurry up and send someone to get a doctor. Lucio looked coldly at her biological daughter, whose breath was as faint as a wisp of smoke. Not only did she show not the slightest trace of sorrow, but she actually took a step back, as if afraid of being tainted by some kind of bad luck. Covering her mouth and nose with a silk handkerchief, she said with disgust, "Why call a doctor? The plague is an incurable, fatal disease. A doctor's visit would be pointless, and he'd only spread the disease to the rest of the household. Since the medicine has already been sprinkled, let her leave her fate to heaven." Leave it to fate? I tilted my head back and stared intently at that face, both familiar and unfamiliar, and suddenly it all seemed utterly absurd. Back when she was part of the Liu family, my older sister had always been the type to curry favor with the powerful. She'd smile warmly at anyone who could bring her benefits. After marrying into the Gu family, she took this snobbery to the extreme. She regarded her biological daughter, who was frail, as a burden and a source of misfortune. Yet she doted on her adopted daughter, Gu Shu, whom the blind fortune teller had called a lucky star, pampering her to the point of granting her every wish. For the sake of an illusory destiny and the Gu family's pitiful fortune, she had even lost her humanity. So much for leaving things to fate. I wiped away my tears and slowly stood up from the ground. My gaze, as sharp as an ice-tempered blade, pierced right through Liu Xiu. Liu Xiu, mark my words. Today, you personally cut off this child's path to life. It is you who, for the sake of a bastard with whom you share no blood ties, are driving your own flesh and blood to her death. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Having been struck where it hurt, Liu Xiu screamed in a fit of rage. I'm her mother, it's none of your business how I run things. Since you care so much about this jinx, you're more than welcome to take her and get the hell out of the Gu family. I'd love to see how many days you two can survive once you're outside the Gu family gates. That's exactly what I was thinking. I picked up on her words without hesitation, my resolute voice echoing through the side courtyard. I walked over to the bed, wrapped Meower tightly in a thin, worn-out but clean blanket lying there, and carefully cradled her in my arms. The 5-year-old was as light as a weightless wadding of cotton. Even through her clothes, I could feel her protruding bones and her burning body heat. Holding Meower in my arms, I walked step by step toward Liu Xiu. Liu Xiu, from this day forward, Gu Miao is no longer a daughter of the Gu family, nor is she your flesh and blood. Liu Xiu, she is my child. Liu Jin's child. As long as I still have a breath left in me, I'll beg the Queen Mother herself if I must, I'll snatch her back from the King of Hell. I stared at her stunned face and said, enunciating each word clearly, today you've abandoned her for the sake of your lucky star. Someday, don't you dare get down on your knees and beg her for the sake of your lucky star. With that, I didn't look at her again. Clutching the dying sapling, I walked out through that dilapidated wooden gate without looking back. The biting cold wind carried tiny ice particles that stung my face like knife cuts. As night fell, the entire capital seemed to be shrouded in a suffocating black veil. I held the child tightly in my arms, trying to warm her gradually cooling body with my own body heat. Don't be afraid, Meower. Auntie will take you away. Auntie will take you to see the miracle doctor. I whispered in her ear as we walked, my tears dried by the cold wind and freezing into frost on my face. I don't know where the road ahead leads, nor do I know where to find a miracle doctor. But I do know that in this cold, indifferent city, I must survive and Meower must survive, too. For no other reason than to show, one day, those who have trampled us underfoot and treated us like dirt just who is the bringer of misfortune and who is the true source of good fortune. On the dark street, the only sound was the sound of my faltering yet determined footsteps. Step by step, heading toward the unknown distance. Late at night, the capital was as silent as a vast graveyard. With the plague raging, every household kept their doors and windows tightly shut, and the streets and alleys were filled with the acrid smell of burning atractalodes mingled with the stench of death. I held the child tightly in my arms as I stumbled along the pitch-black bluestone path. The child's fever was terrifyingly high, and every faint breath felt like it was tearing at my heart. I knocked on the doors of one clinic after another, only to be met with cold rebuffs and the heartless clang of bolts being drawn. Get out! Get out! Get out! The plague is a terminal disease. If you catch it, you'll die. Don't die right at the entrance to our clinic, it's bad luck. The clerk at the last clinic splashed a basin of cold water at my feet and slammed the door shut with a loud bang. I looked down at Miao in my arms, her face as pale as gold paper, unable even to cry, and bit my lower lip until it bled. No, I absolutely cannot let Miao die quietly like this on this cold winter night. That venomous woman Lucio is still living in luxury behind the high walls of the Gu family estate, cradling her lucky star. Why should my Miao be the abandoned stepping stone? In my moment of despair, a terribly dangerous name suddenly flashed through my mind: Luohun Valley. Yan Hui, the ghost doctor. Rumor has it that this man possesses extraordinary medical skills, capable of bringing the dead back to life and restoring flesh to bones, but he has a volatile temper and has established a rule of 3 refusals. He will not treat anything other than exceptionally rare and complex ailments. He will not treat high-ranking officials or the wealthy and powerful. And he will not treat anyone who cannot pay an exorbitant fee. Because his temper is even more unpredictable than that of the King of Hell. And the area outside Lost Soul Valley is filled with toxic miasma. Ordinary people dare not even take a single step near it. But right now, he's the only way out for Miao and me. Gritting my teeth, I tore off my outer garment and tied Miao tightly to my back, then set off toward Luohun Valley, 50 li outside the city, braving the biting cold wind. Heavy snow had cut off the mountain pass. The trail leading to Lost Souls Valley was steep, slippery, and strewn with thorns. The soles of my shoes had long since worn through, and sharp pebbles and ice shards pierced my feet, leaving harrowing trails of blood in the snow with every step I took. My hands were covered in blood from constantly clinging to the vines, and my fingernails were torn, but I didn't even furrow my brow. Miao, don't fall asleep. Auntie will take you to see the miracle doctor. You mustn't fall asleep. I kept talking to the child on my back, breathing heavily, afraid that if she fell asleep, she might never wake up again. I don't know how many times I fell, nor how long I crawled, but when a pale, ghostly glow began to appear on the eastern horizon, I finally made my way through that dizzying, toxic forest and collapsed in front of a stilt house made of thatch and bamboo. Ghost doctor, please save my life. Ghost doctor, please save my life. I knelt on the blue stone slabs covered in ice and snow, using every last ounce of strength I had to bang my head against the ground. Again and again, my forehead hit the hard rock with a dull thud, and blood streamed down my cheek, blurring my vision. Squeak, the bamboo door was pushed open impatiently from the inside. An old man, clad in a tattered sheepskin coat, with graying hair but eyes as sharp as a falcon's, stepped out. He was still twirling a bright red venomous snake in his hand and glared at me coldly, as if I were nothing more than an ant. Who's this reckless, crazy girl who dares to trespass into my Luohun Valley? Didn't you see the signpost outside the valley that says trespassers will be killed? Yan Hui's voice was hoarse and grating, radiating a chilling aura that kept others at arm's length. I crawled forward on my knees, lifted the dying child from my back, cradled her in both hands before him, and pleaded in a hoarse voice, "Master Healer, this child has contracted the plague and is on the verge of death. I beg you, have mercy and save her life." Yan Hui glanced at her briefly, then snorted coldly, "A plague? You dare dump on me the mess those quacks couldn't cure? This girl's heart meridian has already failed. The King of Hell has already crossed her name off the book of life and death. I don't take in the dying. Get out!" With that, he turned to close the door. "Wait, Senior!" I lunged forward suddenly, clinging desperately to the doorframe, my eyes blazing with resolute ferocity. I ripped open my undershirt and, with fingers stiff from the cold, pulled a sweat-soaked oil paper from the hidden pocket. That was all the savings I'd scraped together, penny by penny. Over the years, every last coin I'd managed to set aside so that one day I could take Miao and escape the Gu family. A full 1,000 taels in silver notes. There was also a blood jade pendant of exceptional quality, the only memento left by Lu Xiu's birth mother and me, and the most valuable possession I owned. I presented all these items to Yan Hui in one go, my voice trembling yet resolute. I am aware of your rules, Senior. Today, I, Lu Jin, am giving away my entire fortune. All I ask is that you intervene. This blood jade is a rare warm jade found only once in a century. It's worth a fortune, and I'll count it as the consultation fee. As long as you can save her life, my life, Lu Jin's, will be yours from this day forward. Even if it means serving as a test subject for your poisons or as an ingredient in your potions. I will never utter a single word of complaint. Yan Hui stopped in his tracks, his gaze lingering for a moment on the crystal-clear blood jade before settling on my desperate face. He suddenly let out a sinister laugh, the sound echoing through the empty valley, sending a chill down my spine. What a way to squander your entire fortune, what a way to trade your life for another's. I've been a doctor for most of my life and have seen my fair share of family members turning on each other over inheritance disputes. But a fool like you, willing to throw your life away for some other family's bastard, is truly a first for me. A strange gleam flashed in Yan Hui's eyes as he snatched the blood jade from the other's hand and snorted coldly. Bring him in. Today, I'll go head-to-head with the King of Hell and see whether he's faster at claiming souls or whether my 13 ghost gate needles are more deadly. At that moment, the tension that had been building in my heart all night finally snapped, and tears streamed down my face. I picked up Miao and stumbled inside after them. The next 3 days and 3 nights were nothing short of hell. Yan Hui's methods were extremely brutal and dangerous. He mercilessly stabbed dozens of silver needles, each about 1 cun long, into the major acupoints all over Miao's body, then used a razor blade to slit her 10 fingers, forcing the dark purple, poisonous blood out drop by drop. The entire bamboo house was filled with a strong smell of medicine and the stench of blood. I knelt by the bedside, staying by her side every step of the way. Whenever Miao convulsed in pain and let out a faint, agonized moan, I would shove my arm into her mouth, letting her bite it until it bled profusely without even realizing it, all to keep her from hurting herself in the slightest. On the morning of the 4th day, when the first rays of sunlight pierced the clouds and shone into the bamboo house, the terrifying fever that had gripped Miao finally subsided. She slowly opened her eyes, which she had kept tightly shut for many days, just a crack. Auntie, Miao is thirsty. Although the voice was still faint, it was unmistakably the breath of a living person. I quickly covered my mouth to keep myself from crying out, but tears streamed down my face like beads falling from a broken string. I'd survived. Lu Xiu had wanted her dead, but heaven had insisted on letting her live. From that day on, we settled down in Luohun Valley. To keep my promise, I took on all the rough and strenuous work in the valley, chopping wood, boiling water, and braving the dangers to gather medicinal herbs from the sheer cliffs. Meanwhile, thanks to Yan Hui's priceless traditional remedies, Miao not only completely eradicated the root cause of the plague, but her once frail body also grew stronger day by day. Before we knew it, half a year had passed. That afternoon, I had just returned from gathering herbs on the hill behind the village when I witnessed an extremely eerie scene. The stone table in the center of the courtyard was piled high with sun-dried herbs. Yan Huijing stood there with a grim expression, clutching a yellowed ancient prescription in his hand. His brow was furrowed so deeply it could have crushed a fly, and he muttered to himself, "This doesn't make sense. The antidote for this 7-star intestinal severing powder clearly calls for half a liang of licorice root to neutralize the toxicity of aconite, so why do the effects keep conflicting? Where exactly did things go wrong?" Just then, Miao, who was sitting on a small stool nearby and helping to sort the herbs, suddenly stopped what she was doing. She was only 5.5 years old, and her delicate, porcelain-like face had already filled out a bit. Tilting her head to one side, she said in a clear, childlike voice, "Grandpa Yan, it's not the licorice. You've mixed up 9-joint acarus and water acarus." Yan Hui jerked his head up and stared at the little tyke in front of him in disbelief. His eyebrows furrowed and eyes narrowed as he snapped, "Nonsense. I've been practicing medicine for decades. How could I possibly fail to tell the difference between these two? They look almost identical, and even their medicinal properties are extremely similar." Miao, however, wasn't the least bit afraid of his fierce, menacing appearance. She toddled over to the stone table, deftly picked out 2 slices from a pile of pre-cut medicinal pieces, handed them to Yan Hui, and explained clearly, "Grandpa Yan, please smell these. The one on the left has a distinctive fragrance too, but its cross-section has a ring of extremely fine purple veins, and its scent is slightly pungent. This is water acarus. If used in medicine, it will intensify the harshness of aconite. The one on the right has a pure white cross-section and a sweet, fresh scent that is the 9-segment acarus, which guides the medicine into the meridians. Since you mistook the water acarus for the 9-segment acarus, the medicinal properties are naturally going to clash." As soon as the words were spoken, the entire courtyard fell deathly silent. Yan Hui snatched the 2 slices of medicinal herbs, held them to his nose, and sniffed them repeatedly, then held them up to the sunlight to carefully examine the grain on their cut surfaces. A moment later, his cloudy, aged eyes suddenly lit up with wild delight, and even his hands began to tremble violently. That's right. I've been poring over that incomplete formula for 3 months, and it turns out it was all because of such a subtle difference. Ha 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 ha. Yan Hui suddenly burst into loud laughter, his roar so thunderous it sent the birds fluttering wildly from the trees. He whipped his head around and fixed his gaze on Miao as if she were a priceless treasure. "Little girl, how much of my 1,000 gold poison classic have you read?" Miao blinked her big eyes and said innocently, "Is that the book Grandpa Yin left on the table the day before yesterday? I was bored, so I flipped through it. The illustrations in there are really ugly. They even left out one of the veins on a single wormwood stem in the snow leaf." "You remembered it all? A photographic memory? A natural talent for medicine, with an extraordinary aptitude for pharmacology. A genius! This is a once-in-a-century genius." Yan Hui was so overcome with emotion that he could barely form coherent sentences. He spun around abruptly and grabbed my shoulders with such force that he nearly crushed my bones. His eyes were bloodshot, and his voice was hoarse with intense excitement. "Lu Jin! This young girl, I'm taking her. From this day forward, she is my Yan Hui's final disciple, my sole heir. I will impart every bit of my lifetime's mastery to her." I stood there frozen, watching Miao as Yan Hui held her high in the air, giggling away, and my heart began to race uncontrollably. All I ever wanted was for her to grow up safe and sound, but I never imagined that after taking away her mother's love, fate would bestow upon her such an extraordinary talent. "Lu Xiu, for the sake of a fake lucky charm, you cast aside a true, once-in-a-generation genius as if she were a worn-out shoe. You'd never dream that the daughter you personally pushed into the abyss is about to climb, step by step, to a height you aren't even worthy of looking up to, all through the most extraordinary medical skills in the world." 5 years slipped by quietly as the sun and moon turned in the Valley of Lost Souls. Over the past 5 years, Miao has displayed a terrifying natural talent that even Yan Hui found spine-chilling. At just 10 years old, she had already memorized the 1,000 gold poison classic and the 100 herbs collection inside and out. She could even perform Yan Hui's closely guarded secret, the 13 ghost gate needles, with perfect precision, even with her eyes closed. Yan Hui would often point at her nose and call her a little monster, only to turn around and happily head to the back mountain in search of even rarer poisons for her to practice on. As for me, I've mastered the art of processing medicinal herbs here in the Valley of Lost Souls. Every half-month, I disguise myself and take the processed rare herbs to the black market in the capital to exchange them for silver and news from the outside world. That's exactly why I know everything there is to know about the Gu family's activities over the past 5 years. These past 5 years have been nothing short of glorious for Lu Xiu. Ever since she drove me and Miao away, Gu Shu, the lucky star mentioned by that blind fortune teller, has become her biggest cash cow. As luck would have it, those 2 years coincided with a period of bountiful harvests and favorable weather. Through a series of fortuitous circumstances, Gu Ting's cloth business made a fortune, and his position rose accordingly. Lu Xiu attributed all of this to the blessings of Gu Shu's lucky star. She curried favor with everyone and single-handedly turned Gu Shu into a sort of good luck charm among the capital's high society ladies. Whether a lady had long struggled with infertility or a gentleman's career was faltering, as long as they paid a hefty sum, Lu Xiu would bring Gu Shu to their residence to bestow blessings. Gushu had been spoiled rotten by Lu Xiao to the point of being completely out of control. Though only 10 years old, she was already decked out in gold and silver and bossed everyone around. She even genuinely believed herself to be a fairy descended from heaven. She would casually mix some incense ash with water and dare to call it Lucky Star Elixir, using it to deceive those desperate women who would try anything to cure their illnesses. The Gu family was clearly living in the lap of luxury, surrounded by splendor and opulence. But I know all too well that a tower built on lies and luck will shatter into pieces the moment it collapses. That day, no sooner had I taken my seat at my secret hideout in the black market than I heard news that sent ripples of turmoil through the entire capital. The most favored concubine in the harem, Consort Wan, had been disfigured. It is said that she accidentally used the wrong type of perfumed powder, a tribute from the western regions, which caused a terrifying rash to break out all over her face. The rash was excruciatingly itchy, and after she scratched it, it began to ooze pus and become ulcerated. Consort Wan, who valued her appearance above all else, was so terrified that she smashed objects day after day. Fearing liability, the imperial physicians at the Imperial Medical Academy dared only to prescribe mild, heat-clearing formulas, which were utterly ineffective against the virulent toxin. The emperor issued an order. If the consort's face was not cured within 3 days, the entire Imperial Medical Academy would be beheaded. When the news broke, all the renowned doctors in the capital stayed home and pretended to be sick, for fear of getting into trouble. But, as it happens, there are some who are foolish enough to walk right into the line of fire. Have you heard? Mrs. Gu from the Gu family actually went to the palace early this morning with her lucky charm of an adopted daughter. The owner of the secret hideout said to me in a low voice. They say that little lucky charm from the Gu family had a dream in which a divine being appeared to her, and she personally brewed a jar of jade complexion ointment that can bring the dead back to life and is guaranteed to cure any illness. My hand holding the teacup paused slightly, and I let out a cold laugh. Lu Xiao. Oh, Lu Xiao. These past 5 years of vanity have truly gone to your head. Empress Consort One is such a ruthless woman. Those festering sores on her face are clearly the result of a severe fire poison. How could your adopted daughter, who's as dumb as a pig, possibly cover them up with a little incense ash? I can almost guess what Lu Xiao is up to. If Consort One recovers from her illness, the Gu family will be credited with an immense achievement, and Gushu might even be granted the title of county princess as an exceptional exception. For the sake of this unimaginable wealth and prestige, she has thrown even the most basic sense of reverence to the dogs. As evening fell, the sky over the capital was eerily overcast, as if it were the deathly silence before a storm. Instead of rushing back to Hun Valley, I found the tea house closest to the Gu residence and reserved a private booth facing the street. The Gu family's front gate was decked out with festive decorations, and bright red lanterns hung high, their glow almost blinding. Word had it that after Empress Wan applied that jar of jade complexion ointment from Gushu to her face, the red rash miraculously subsided somewhat. Overjoyed, the Empress bestowed countless treasures of gold, silver, and jewels upon the Gu family and promised to petition the emperor the very next day to grant Gushu an official title. Lu Xiao, carried away by her pride, actually went so far as to throw a grand banquet at the height of the controversy, sending out invitations far and wide, as if she wanted the entire capital to know that the Gu family was about to produce a county princess. Madam, this lucky star really is the cash cow of our Gu family. Even from across the street, I could hear the sycophantic chatter coming from the Gu family's courtyard and Lu Xiao's brazen, shrill laughter. Of course, Zhuer's good fortune is a gift from heaven, unlike some lowly brats who are born as harbingers of doom, bringing misfortune to their families. Lu Xiao's voice carried on the night breeze, laced with undisguised bitterness. I knew she was speaking in veiled terms. She was actually lashing out at her own daughter, the one she had abandoned on that snowy night. I lifted the slightly cool tea to my lips and took a sip, my gaze fixed coldly on the vermilion gate of the Gu family's residence. Just then, a deafening clatter of hooves suddenly rang out from the end of the street. Tap, 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 the rhythmic clanging of armor pierced the night sky, scattering the stray cats from the streets and alleys. Dozens of imperial guards, clad in heavy armor and wielding gleaming long swords, charged toward the Gu residence like black demons, radiating a murderous aura. The commander of the Imperial Guard, his face ashen, charged ahead to the gates of the Gu residence. Without even dismounting, he kicked open the two freshly painted gates. With a loud boom, the sounds of string and wind instruments in the Gu family courtyard came to an abrupt halt. This is a royal guard investigation, all unauthorized persons. Get out of here! The commander roared angrily, drawing the long sword from his waist. Gu Ting and Lu Xiu, get out here and receive the imperial decree. The courtyard instantly descended into chaos. The guests, who had been fawning just moments before, scattered in panic, only to be forced back by the icy blades of the imperial guards. Lu Xiu, her head adorned with jewels and her face deathly pale, was led out by Gu Ting. She probably hadn't yet awakened from her dream of becoming the mother of a county princess, and forced a smile as she stepped forward. Commander, what's going on? Has the Empress's reward been granted? A reward? The commander sneered coldly, as if looking at a dead man. Imperial consort one used your jade complexion ointment, and the poison backflowed. Now her entire face is completely rotted away, and she's barely clinging to life. The emperor is furious and has issued an edict ordering the entire Gu family to be executed to atone for their crimes. What? Lu Xiu's smile froze on her face in an instant. Her legs suddenly gave way, and she collapsed straight onto the ground. The golden hairpin on her head fell to the floor with a crisp, mournful clatter. It can't be, this can't be. Zhuer is a good luck charm. Her medicine clearly works. Lu Xiu screamed incoherently, searching frantically all around her. Zhuer, you have to tell them, you're a good luck charm. In the corner, Gu Shu, spoiled rotten and dressed in luxurious brocade, had long since wet herself in fear. She lay slumped on the floor, trembling uncontrollably, unable to utter even a single complete sentence. Arrest him! Throw him into the imperial prison, he'll be executed in the fall. The commander waved his hand impatiently. The imperial guards, fierce as wolves and tigers, rushed forward, roughly tearing the silk robes from Lu Xiu's body and slamming cold shackles around her neck. Gu Ting and Gu Shu were also dragged out like dead dogs. A piercing wail echoed over the Gu residence, cutting through the night in the capital. I stood at the window of the tea house, looking down from above as my once arrogant older sister was dragged into the prison van like a beast of burden. A faint, cold smile playing at the corners of my mouth. The wicked will be punished by heaven. But the true judgment has only just begun. Early the next morning, the heavy snowfall had stopped, but the capital was shrouded in an atmosphere of terror even more suffocating than the wind and snow. In front of the Xingyang gate of the imperial palace, a bright yellow imperial proclamation hung high. The proclamation bore a crimson imperial seal, and every character seemed to be written in blood. Whoever can cure imperial consort one shall be rewarded with 10,000 taels of gold and granted an official post and a noble title. If no one can cure her within 3 days, the entire imperial medical academy shall be buried alive with her. The area around the imperial edict was crowded with citizens from the capital and physicians from all over the country. Yet not a single person dared to step forward. Faced with a mysterious poison that even the foremost experts at the Imperial Medical Academy were powerless to treat, who would dare to risk the lives and fortunes of their entire clan? Just as everyone was whispering and pointing, a clear yet firm child's voice suddenly rang out from the edge of the crowd. I'll take down this list. The crowd parted in astonishment, as if Moses had parted the Red Sea. Holding the hand of 10-year-old Miao, I walked slowly to the imperial edict. 5 years had passed, and Miao had long since shed her former gauntness and frailty, blossoming into a graceful young woman. Today she wore a simple, moon-white physician's robe. Her long hair was pinned up with a plain wooden hairpin. There was not a trace of the childish innocence one might expect from a 10-year-old in her expression. Instead, she exuded a calm composure and detachment born of having witnessed life and death time and again. Under the stunned gazes of the imperial guards standing watch over the imperial edict board, Miao let go of my hand, stood on tiptoe, and tore down the imperial edict, which felt as heavy as 1,000 caddies. How dare you! The commander of the imperial guard, standing at the head of the group, suddenly drew his sword and held it across Miao's path, shouting angrily, "Who are you, you little brat? How dare you treat the imperial proclamation as a joke? Don't you value your life? I took a step forward, shielding Miao with my body, and, with neither humility nor arrogance, pulled a black token, neither gold nor jade, from my sleeve and held it up before the commander. From the Valley of Lost Souls, the successor to the ghost physician has claimed the challenge. If the imperial consort's condition is delayed, I'm afraid your head alone won't be enough for the emperor to chop off. When the commander saw the ghost doctor's decree engraved with that eerie totem, his expression turned pale with horror. The name of the ghost doctor, Yan Hui, was revered like a deity throughout the 9 provinces. Who didn't know it? He sucked in a sharp breath. Noticing that Miao's gaze had changed, he quickly sheathed his sword and bowed respectfully. Divine Doctor, please follow me into the palace. Half an hour later, we were hurriedly ushered into the magnificent yet lifeless Yonghe Palace. Inside the grand hall, even the heavy scent of dragon saliva incense could not mask the nauseating stench of rotting flesh. From behind the bright yellow curtains came the faint, anguished wails of a woman in despair. The imperial physicians were kneeling all over the floor, each one trembling uncontrollably, their official robes soaked through with cold sweat. Useless fools! You're all a bunch of good-for-nothings. If anything happens to my beloved consort today, I'll have your entire clans executed. The emperor, furious beyond measure, hurled a white jade teacup at the head of the chief physician of the Imperial Medical Academy. The sight of shattered porcelain mixed with blood was horrifying. Your Majesty, the successor to the ghost doctor has been brought before you, the eunuch leading the way announced tremblingly. The emperor whipped his head around, his bloodshot eyes fixed intently on the doorway. However, when he saw that the only ones entering were me, a young woman, and a little girl just over 10 years old, the hope in his eyes instantly turned to overwhelming rage. You scoundrels! How dare you try to fool me with these mere children? Guards! Drag these 2 impostors out and behead them. The imperial physician, who had been kneeling on the ground, looked up and said sarcastically, there are always some presumptuous commoners out there who think they can swindle people by claiming to be the ghost doctor. If she's truly the ghost doctor's successor, this old servant will swallow this medicine chest whole. Faced with the emperor's thunderous wrath and the court physician's scorn, Miao didn't even bat an eye. She broke free from my grip, walked straight to the center of the hall, and bowed slightly. Her clear voice rang out like a bell in the deathly silent hall. If your Majesty wishes to kill me, you may very well wait until I have finished treating the imperial consort before doing so. However, the imperial consort is currently suffering from poison ravaging her heart. If we delay even for the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, not even a divine immortal descending from heaven could save her. The emperor was taken aback by the composure she displayed, which seemed out of place for someone her age. He clenched his teeth and, in a last-ditch effort, waved his hand. Very well. I'll give you one chance. If you fail to cure him, I'll have you all torn to pieces. Miao carried the medicine chest and strode toward the bed. A eunuch lifted the canopy with a bamboo pole, revealing the horrifyingly gaunt face of Imperial Consort Wan. Her once breathtakingly beautiful face was now covered with purplish-black pustules. Her cheeks were severely swollen, and black blood was oozing from the festering wounds. Miao remained impassive as she placed her hand on Consort Wan's pulse. After just a moment, she withdrew her hand and declared coldly, Your Highness merely misused a perfume laced with the western region's fire snake grass, which caused a few red rashes. A single dose of snow lotus decoction to clear heat and eliminate toxins will be enough to cure her. Upon hearing this, the chief physician of the Imperial Medical Academy turned pale, for that had been their initial diagnosis as well. Miao changed the subject, a hint of sarcasm creeping into her voice. But later, someone applied an extremely toxic jade complexion ointment to the Empress. Not only was the ointment laced with inferior musk, but, worse still, it was mixed with incense ash that hadn't been fully burned. Incense ash is drying in nature. It effectively sealed the toxicity of the fire snake grass beneath the skin, with nowhere for the toxic fumes to escape. They reversed course and attacked her heart, causing her face to ulcerate and her internal organs to fail. The Gu family! That venomous woman and that so-called lucky charm. The emperor roared furiously and slammed his fist against a pillar. Issue my decree. Have the imperial prison inflict the harshest punishment on the Gu family. Make their lives a living hell. Your Majesty, Please calm down and let me perform acupuncture. Miao opened the first aid kit and took out a row of silver needles of varying lengths. These were no ordinary silver needles, but the mystic ice needles, unique to the Valley of Lost Souls. She took a deep breath, and her hands flitted across the air like a butterfly among flowers, so fast that they left only a blur. 13 consecutive needles, each strike deadly, each aimed directly at a vital point. This is Yan Hui's unique and unparalleled technique, the 13 Ghost Gate needles. The imperial physicians present had initially looked on with disdain, but when they saw how precisely Miao located the acupoints and the force with which she inserted the needles, they all widened their eyes in unison, and gasps of astonishment rang out one after another. This is the long-lost 13 Ghost Gate acupuncture technique. She really is the successor to the Ghost Doctor. The chief physician of the Imperial Medical Academy was trembling with excitement. He scrambled forward, crawling and rolling as he went, and stared intently at Miao's technique, as if witnessing some divine miracle. As the last silver needle was inserted, Consort One's body suddenly convulsed violently. She jerked her head to the side and spat out a large mouthful of dark purple, poisoned blood. As soon as the poisoned blood flowed out, that nauseating stench miraculously dissipated by more than half. Miao pulled out the silver needle, then took a small white jade vial from the medicine chest. She poured out a green medicinal liquid that gave off a strange, refreshing fragrance and gently applied it with a feather to Consort One's festering face. The moment the liquid touched the wound, an incredible sight unfolded. Those hideous pus-filled blisters began to shrink at a visible rate, and the black blood oozing from them turned into normal, bright red blood. In less than half an hour, Consort One's breathing, which had been as faint as a thread, became long and steady, and the terrifying purplish-black discoloration on her face had faded by more than half, leaving only a few scabbed scars. Your Majesty. Imperial Consort One slowly opened her eyes. Though her voice was weak, it no longer carried the anguished wails of before. My face doesn't hurt anymore. The Emperor was overjoyed. He rushed to the bedside in 2 strides, clasped Consort One's hand tightly, and, overcome with emotion, wept tears of joy. My beloved consort, you've finally woken up. How wonderful! How wonderful! He spun around abruptly, and the look in his eyes as he gazed at Miao had shifted from suspicion to fervent awe. A miracle doctor. Truly, a miracle doctor emerges in youth. The Emperor laughed heartily. Young miracle doctor, what reward do you desire? Gold, silver, jewels, or fertile fields and grand mansions? I shall grant you all of it. Miao calmly packed up his medical kit, knelt down, and bowed his head, his voice clear and resonant. I, Lu Miao, a humble subject, seek neither gold nor silver, nor fertile fields. Since childhood, I have studied medicine with my aunt in the deep mountains, and I only wish to use my medical skills to heal the sick and serve the imperial court. Lu Miao? The Emperor pondered for a moment, his eyes flashing with admiration. What a young physician with a heart for the realm. With such extraordinary medical skills, it would be a waste of your talent to remain among the common people. Today, I shall make an exception and appoint you as a 5th-rank imperial physician at the Imperial Medical Academy. I bestow upon you the golden pouch, granting you free access to the palace grounds so that you may take the pulses of the emperor and the imperial consorts to ensure their well-being. As soon as those words were spoken, the entire room was taken aback. Since the founding of the empire, there had never been a precedent for a woman to hold office in the Imperial Medical Academy, let alone a child as young as 10. A 5th-rank official, that was a position many veteran imperial physicians spent their entire lives striving to reach but never attained. However, upon seeing Consort One's face, which had miraculously improved, the imperial physicians exchanged glances. Not a single one dared to voice any objection. Instead, they all knelt and cried out in unison. The Emperor is wise. Imperial physician Lu's medical skills are nothing short of divine. We are all thoroughly convinced. I stood to one side, watching Miao kneel at the Emperor's feet as he received the highest honor, and my eyes welled up with tears. That little girl from 5 years ago, abandoned by her biological mother in a remote courtyard, branded a bad omen. and left on the brink of death after being burned, now shines so brightly under the titles of heir to the divine healer and fifth-rank imperial physician that one dares not look directly at her. At this very moment, in the cold, damp imperial prison, Lu Xiu, who had once stood high above everyone else and trampled her own flesh and blood underfoot for the sake of a false lucky star, was letting out piercing screams under brutal torture, awaiting the fate of her entire family being executed. The Emperor's grace is boundless. Even thunder and rain are expressions of his benevolence. After Miao cured Consort Wan, he was not only promoted, in an unprecedented move, to the rank of fifth-rank imperial physician, but the Emperor also bestowed upon him a grand mansion with 3 courtyards and 3 entrances within the inner city, personally inscribing a plaque with the words "Healing the World with Medicine," which was hung high above the vermilion-lacquered main gate. In no time, the fame of the little miracle doctor spread throughout the capital, and countless high-ranking officials and nobles, bearing large sums of money, formed long lines outside the mansion, all hoping for just a glimpse of the miracle doctor. In stark contrast to this scene of intense prosperity was the Gu family, which found itself abandoned by everyone once it had fallen from grace. After Consort One had fully recovered, the Emperor issued his final verdict. The Gu family had deceived the Emperor and plotted to murder a consort. They should have been executed to the last man. However, in recognition of the young physician's success in removing the root of the poison from the consort, they were spared the death penalty but could not escape punishment. The entire Gu family was stripped of all official positions and property, sentenced to hard labor, and exiled to the frigid lands of Ningguda, never to return to the capital for the rest of their lives. At noon today, they are to be paraded through the streets in shackles for public display and immediately escorted out of the city. 3 days later, dark clouds covered the sky. I sat upright in the warm chamber of the Lu mansion, a gift from the Emperor, leisurely stirring the silver thread charcoal in my purple bronze hand warmer. From the street outside, I suddenly heard the clamor of angry shouts, the clang of bronze gongs, and the rumbling sound of the prison cart's heavy wooden wheels grinding against the blue stone pavers. "Madam, young master, the Gu family's prison cart has arrived," the gatekeeper respectfully reported from outside the gate. A cold smile played at the corner of my mouth as I turned to look at Miao, who was quietly leafing through a medical text nearby. She wore a custom-made blue robe befitting a fifth-rank civil official, with a lifelike white pheasant emblem embroidered on the chest. Her snow-white, adorable appearance exuded an aura of dignity so commanding that one dared not look upon her directly. "Let's go, Miao." I stood up and smoothed out my long cloud brocade gown. "Let's go see your dear mother off on her final journey." As the vermilion gate slowly swung open, the clamor from outside surged in like a tide. On the street, 3 dilapidated prison vans were slowly making their way down the road. Onlookers had crowded the street so densely that not even a drop of water could pass through, and rotten vegetable leaves and rotten eggs rained down on the people inside the vans. "Kill those scoundrels! They nearly killed Her Imperial Highness the Consort. What a load of crap about a lucky star, he's just a con artist." In the lead prison wagon, Gu Ting's hair was already a tangled mess, her eyes vacant, as if she were nothing more than a walking corpse. In the wagon behind her, Gu Zhu, the so-called lucky charm who had once been doted on, was wailing as she was pelted with a few rotten vegetable leaves. Her flabby body squeezed into the prison uniform, she looked utterly ridiculous. And the one locked up in the prison van in the middle was none other than my dear sister. Lu Xiu, the once mighty matriarch, now had her face caked with grime, her hair matted to her forehead like weeds, and her luxurious garments had long since been stripped from her, leaving her with nothing but a thin, filthy prison uniform. A heavy wooden collar was rubbing her neck raw, leaving it covered in blood. As the prison cart pulled up in front of the Lu residence, Lu Xiu, who had been staring with eyes as lifeless as ashes, suddenly saw a glimmer of near-frantic will to survive flare up in her eyes upon hearing someone in the crowd say, "This is the residence of Dr. Lu, the physician who cured the imperial consort." "Stop, officer, please. I beg you, stop." Lu Xiu desperately grabbed the wooden railing and let out a piercing scream. "Let me see Dr. Lu." The officers escorting her had no intention of paying her any mind, but when they saw the Lu mansion's gates wide open, they feared this madwoman might disturb the Emperor's favorite, so they yanked the chains violently, roughly dragging Lu Xiu out of the prison cart and kicking her hard in the back of the knee. Get on your knees. This is the divine physician's residence. How dare you shout and make a scene? Lu Xiao collapsed to her knees with a thud at the foot of the white jade steps leading up to the Lu mansion. Paying no heed to the excruciating pain that felt as though her kneecaps were shattering, she began frantically kowtowing toward the main gate, wailing tearfully as she did so. "Oh, great healer! I beg you to have mercy and save our Gu family. I, Lu, a humble woman of the people, am willing to serve you as a cow or a horse, and to repay your great kindness in any way I can. I beg you, since we all share the same surname, Lu, to go to the palace and plead for mercy on my behalf. Ninguda is a living hell. Once you go there, you'll never come back." She banged her head against the ground with such force that, after just a few blows, bright red blood began to ooze from her forehead, staining the blue-gray flagstones in front of her. Holding Miao's hand, I slowly stepped out from behind the high threshold and looked down from above at this woman, who resembled a stray dog. Mrs. Lu really hit her head hard. That was quite a thud. My cold, detached voice cut through the still air like a blade tempered in ice. Upon hearing that voice, so familiar it sent shivers down her spine, Lu Xiao, who had been frantically bowing her head, suddenly froze. Like a rusty marionette, she raised her head inch by inch. When her gaze swept past the steps and she saw me standing up high, her eyes, which had been sunken with fear, suddenly widened to their fullest extent, her pupils contracting violently, as if she had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Lu Jean? Her voice cracked with sheer shock, sounding like a hen being choked by the neck. What are you doing here? I walked down the steps one by one and stopped 3 steps away from her, laughing coldly. Why can't I be here? It's been 5 years since we last saw each other, and you've really hit rock bottom, sister. You've even managed to master the art of crawling like a dog. Lu Xiao's mind was in a complete whirl. She looked at the luxurious cloud-patterned brocade I was wearing, then at the imperial plaque behind me. Suddenly, as if she had realized something, she pointed at me and screamed, You're that legendary Dr. Lu? You're the one who cured Consort 1? Fine, Lu Jean. You clearly possess medical skills capable of bringing the dead back to life, so why are you standing by and watching the Gu family suffer? You're kicking them when they're down. May you die a horrible death." She still had that arrogant, high and mighty look on her face, as if I owed her the whole world. I didn't get angry. Instead, I looked at her with pity, as if I were looking at a complete idiot. "Sister, you really are blind," I said, shifting slightly to the side to fully expose Miao standing beside me, speaking slowly and deliberately. "Take a good look. Who is the true master of the divine physician's manner? The one personally appointed by the emperor as a 5th-rank imperial physician for curing imperial consort 1? Only then did Lu Xiao's gaze follow my lead and settle on Miao. When she clearly saw Miao's face, which bore a faint resemblance to her own yet had matured into something as exquisite as a celestial child at Guaning's feet, and when she clearly saw the blue robe Miao wore, symbolizing the supreme honor of a 5th-rank official, Lu Xiao's breath caught in her throat. She's. Lu Xiao began to tremble violently all over. Her lips quivered, and she just couldn't bring herself to say that name. 5 years ago, you believed the words of a charlatan and treated her as a harbinger of misfortune who would bring ruin to your family. You threw her, along with an old garment tainted by the plague, into that cold, remote courtyard in the midst of a blizzard, leaving her to fend for herself. My voice wasn't loud, but it rang out clearly to everyone present, causing a stir among the onlookers. You treated a bastard child you found who knows where is a good luck charm, yet cast aside your own flesh and blood daughter like a worn-out shoe. Heaven sees all. That so-called good luck charm of yours was nothing but a fraud who led your entire family to be executed. Whereas this daughter you rejected not only survived but also mastered the ghost doctor's true teachings, becoming the youngest 5th-rank imperial physician in the current dynasty. I leaned down and looked at Lu Xiao's face, which was already contorted with utter shock and remorse, and cruelly delivered the final blow. "Sister, the little miracle doctor you're now prostrating yourself before to beg for help is none other than the true blessing from heaven, the very one you abandoned with your own hands all those years ago." "No, it can't be. This can't be happening." Lu Xiao let out a blood-curdling scream, as if a dying beast were howling. She stared intently at Miao, her mind frantically replaying scenes from the past 5 years. How she had idolized Gu Zhu. How she had dreamed of becoming the mother of a county princess, only to have her family destroyed in the end because of Gu Zhu's foolishness. If only she hadn't abandoned Miao back then the mother of the imperial physician standing here now, basking in the admiration of the masses and the imperial family's favor, would be none other than Lu Xiu herself. Extreme remorse, like a pair of claws dripping with venom, tore frantically at her heart. She lunged forward like a madwoman, ignoring the weight of her shackles, desperately reaching out to grab the hem of Miao's shirt, her face smeared with tears and snot. Miao, my dear daughter. Lu Xiu wept with heart-wrenching grief, writhing on the ground without a shred of dignity. I was blind. I've let you down. Please save me. I carried you in my womb for 10 months. Faced with her own mother's pitiful pleas, not a trace of emotion crossed Miao's face. She even took half a step back to avoid Lu Xiu's filthy hands, her clear eyes filled with nothing but icy indifference. You've got the wrong person, Miao said in a childlike voice that betrayed a calmness born of great experience. My mother died 5 years ago. Lu Miao has only an aunt. She has no mother. Those words struck Lu Xiu like a resounding slap across the face, shattering her last shred of hope. The crowd instantly erupted, and a torrent of spittle nearly engulfed Lu Xiu. What a vile, heartless woman, worse than a pig or a dog. She'd even harm her own daughter. She deserves this. She tossed aside a real golden phoenix like a common chicken and picked up a rotten toad as if it were a treasure. She really is blind as a bat. Amid the angry shouts of the common people, Gu Ting's hysterical roar echoed from the prison cart behind them. He had clearly heard everything. As he looked at his own daughter, standing on the high platform and radiant with glory. And then at Gu Zhu, that pig-like, so-called lucky star, inside the prison cart. Gu Ting suddenly went mad and began ramming his head against the wooden bars with reckless abandon. Lu Xiu! You venomous woman! I'll kill you! I'll kill you! Gu Ting's desperate roar echoed down the long street. Lu Xiu slumped motionlessly on the ground, staring at her cold, indifferent daughter while listening to her husband's curses and the people's scorn. Suddenly, she threw her head back and burst into a maniacal laugh that sounded even more hideous than crying. Lucky star, it's all a lie. I'm the biggest joke of all. Ha ha ha. The officers escorting them could no longer stand the sight of it. Fearing they would soil the entrance to the divine physician's manor, they stepped forward, kicked Lu Xiu to the ground, and dragged her back into the prison cart as if she were a dead dog. Let's go! The constable shouted, accompanied by the grating sound of wooden wheels and the frenzied wails of Gu Ting and Lu Xiu. The Gu family's prison cart slowly made its way toward the city gates amid a blizzard of falling snow. What awaited them was a long, hopeless, an agonizing ordeal, a life worse than death. I stood on the steps, watching those dilapidated prison vans disappear down the end of the street, and let out a long, deep breath to clear the heaviness from my chest. 5 years of endurance, the dash through the snowy night, and those heart-wrenching memories, at this very moment, they finally came to a complete end. Auntie, it's windy out here. Let's go back to the mansion. Miao gently tugged at my sleeve, looked up at me, and gave me a pure, radiant smile. I clasped her warm little hand in mine, my eyes filled with a sense of relief and tenderness I had never felt before. All right, let's go home. The moment I turned and stepped through the gate, sunlight broke through the clouds and shone down on the plaque inscribed with the words healing the world through medicine, making it gleam brilliantly. I knew that a brand new, brilliant chapter in the lives of my niece and me had only just begun. I heard that Gu Ting went mad less than 100 li after leaving the capital. Whenever he closed his eyes, his mind was filled with images of his biological daughter, who had been appointed a 5th-rank imperial physician and the residence of the divine physician, an imperial gift that should have been his. The stark contrast and overwhelming remorse completely shattered this man's sanity. He vented all his bitterness and resentment on Lu Xiu and that false bringer of good fortune, Gu Zhu. Gu Zhu was stripped of all her fine clothes and jewelry and forced to wear thin, coarse prison garb. She was so cold that her body was covered in sores. Having been spoiled by Lu Xiu since childhood, never having to lift a finger, she had never endured such hardship before. Throughout the journey, she did nothing but wail for meat and silk garments, and curse everyone around her. Shut up! You jinx! You harbinger of doom! Gu Ting, driven to distraction by what he heard, lunged forward and clamped his hands tightly around Guju's thick neck. His eyes bloodshot. He roared. If it weren't for you, you imposter, swindling everyone, how could my own daughter have been driven away? How could I have ended up in this situation? I'll beat you to death. You bastard! Lu Xiao screamed as she tried to pull him away, but Gu Ting kicked her squarely in the solar plexus, knocking out half a tooth in the process. The once loving and respectable couple, now trapped in a prison wagon amid the freezing snow and ice, were tearing at and beating each other like wild dogs, causing the officials to burst into laughter as they watched the spectacle. Without silver to grease the wheels, the officials naturally wouldn't give them the time of day. Stale soup and cold steamed buns were their only daily rations. Halfway to the border crossing, they encountered a blizzard the likes of which occurs only once in a century. Gu Ting had already damaged his internal organs due to intense anger, and now he had caught a chill in the bitter cold. With no doctor and no medicine, he lay in a dilapidated temple with a high fever for 3 days and 3 nights. As he lay dying, he glared fiercely at Lu Xiao, mustered his last ounce of strength to scratch her face, and breathed his last amid endless curses and resentment. With Gu Ting's death, Lu Xiao and Gu Zhu's situation became even more unbearable. Life was worse than death. Heavy snow had cut them off from the outside world, and they were starving and freezing. One night, in an attempt to snatch the half-hardened dry biscuit from Lu Xiao's arms, Gu Zhu, without a moment's hesitation, violently pushed Lu Xiao, whose hands were covered in frostbite, down the icy, steep slope. Lu Xiao had broken both her legs and lay motionless in the freezing snow. Her adopted daughter, the lucky charm she treasured above all else and for whom she had even abandoned her own flesh and blood, didn't even glance at her. Clutching half a piece of bread, she crawled away without looking back, only to lose her way and ultimately freeze to death in a snowdrift just a few steps away. I heard that just before Lu Xiao drew her last breath. Heavy snow had nearly buried her. As she gazed at the snowflakes swirling through the sky, I wonder if she recalled that winter night 5 years ago, when she, too, had mercilessly cast her own flesh and blood, whom she had burned to the brink of death, into the freezing snow. As the saying goes, what goes around comes around. In the end, justice was served. In stark contrast to the Gu family's tragic demise, Miao and I embraced a life of boundless wealth and splendor in the capital. After Consort 1 made a full recovery, the emperor was overjoyed. Not only did he bestow upon us 10,000 taels of gold and 1,000 ching of prime farmland, but he also granted us several shops in the most bustling areas of the capital. Although Miao was only 10 years old, she had already made quite a name for herself at the Imperial Medical Academy. With her exceptional medical skills, she generously shared some of the modified, gentler formulas from Luohan Valley with the senior physicians there, quickly winning over that group of master physicians who had previously been arrogant and self-assured. She even proposed establishing a free Baoha Hall in the capital, dedicated to providing acupuncture and free medicine to impoverished citizens who could not afford medical care. The emperor approved her memorial, led by the Imperial Medical Academy and funded by our Lu family. This charitable endeavor earned the little divine healer the reverence of the common people, who revered her as a living bodhisattva. As for me, I naturally took on the role of mistress of the Lu household. Using the capital granted to me by the emperor, I leased those shops and opened the largest herbal medicine store in the capital. Well versed in pharmacology and herbal processing, I sourced only the finest herbs, and my business flourished day by day. In my spare time, I would review the ledgers at my residence or sip tea and watch the snow fall from my warm study. My life was one of affluence, tranquility, and contentment. Before we knew it, it was early spring again. The peach blossoms in the Lu family's back garden were in full bloom, resembling a pink cloud. I was sitting in the pavilion, poring over last month's receipts from the herbal medicine shop, as warm sunlight streamed in and a gentle breeze blew, scattering blossoms all around. That blind fortune teller was actually right. Miao really is a blessing sent from heaven. But this blessing was by no means achieved through a few vague and ethereal prophecies or through deceitful pretense. It was earned by Miao through countless days and nights of painstaking study of medical texts in Luohan Valley. as she fought to snatch life from the clutches of death with each silver needle. It was forged by my niece and me as we remained unyielding and supported one another in the face of despair, forging our path step by step, leaving a trail of blood in our wake. A true lucky star never needs anyone else to bestow a halo upon them. For as long as the flame of resilience burns within the heart, even a lone blade of grass cast aside in the snow and ice will one day rise against the wind, break through the snow, and shine brilliantly. And thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you.